the technical aspects of that. Previous to this, I worked at a consultancy firm called Gartner, managing technology partners and sponsors of their events. So more of a events and sponsorship background coming into McLaren.
Brilliant. It's great to have you guys with us, and thank you so much for giving up your time to join us today. So let's get started. We are going to answer some general kind of commonly asked questions that we got when we put the question out to our Formula Career Support group, and then the panel will answer some specific questions from the chat box. So if you guys think of any questions, then just pop them in the little chat box. So our first question, we have, what skills or qualities are useful to have aside from a degree? Anyone can answer that.
So I'd probably be the first to say that I was very much hired in my job, not for my engineering experience or skills. Sorry, for my engineering skills and experience, not for my academic knowledge, that way around. So I've worked in automotive industry for 8 years beforehand, and all I can say from that experience and how I got into F1 was basically find something you enjoy doing and become really good at it that you can specialize, and then from there find your way into F1, because let's be honest, everyone in Formula One are specialists of some form. That's how we get hired into the sport. And you need to find something that you're good at to enjoy doing, because the long dark hours in the winters are like Mel working in the wind tunnel and stuff like that. They don't get easy, and they are things that you need to find some joys and pleasure out of. So yeah, find something you're good at doing and passionate about, and start from there.
Yeah, same here actually. I already told you that I used to work in a bank. That's because I couldn't get a job in Formula One right away after uni. So I started working for a bank and then gained some experience there, and basically tried to use the soft skills I used there, to get a job in Formula One. And I think the most important thing is you just have to keep trying until you get it, basically. So be proactive, show that you really want to work in F1, and just, yeah, keep going until you get it. That's how I did it. And even after being out of the technical industry for 2 years, I still managed to get a job. So everything is possible. You just have to try.
Yeah, I would agree. Anything is possible if you set your mind to it. Some advice that was given to me around skills and how to gain the skills is reverse write your CV. So if you were to write your CV at the end of your career, what would it say? And what skills would you have at the top of that? And how do you get there? What career path do you need to do to get there? There's lots and lots of different ways to get to where you want to be. If you're creative and determined, you will get there.
That's a great tip, to reverse write your CV. I wish I'd have thought of that before I was in university. So our next question, how do you get into F1 if you wanted a non-technical role? This one's for Katie.
Like I mentioned, there's lots of different routes for non-technical roles. There's also lots of non-technical roles in terms of events, PR, partnerships where I sit, design, as in not design of the Formula One car itself, but more graphic design. So all of the infographics and content that you see on our social channels is all designed and created in-house. We have a huge digital team. We're the first team that's just reached 6 million followers. So we've got a team dedicated to increasing our following. I'm sure lots of you are following us on our social channels, but there's lots of aspects to running a Formula One team that you don't need to have necessarily a degree in engineering or aerodynamics, but it really is up to you to define what makes you tick, what excites you, and actually if you become a subject matter expert in that, you can bring lots of expertise and knowledge into the business, and it makes you a lot more valuable. There's obviously only 10 Formula One teams. There's only a finite amount of roles within each one, and with the cost caps coming as well, the marketing is actually outside of the cost caps. So I'm very biased in saying that we've got a very strong marketing team, but I'm very proud of the work that we do. I'd advise you guys to look at some of the Dell substitute teacher campaigns that we did during lockdown. This was to work with Dell to engage younger audiences and to give parents a relief. But we had amazing spokespeople from the race team, aerodynamics, downforce, really cool subjects, and that was all produced in-house in our marketing department. So for those that follow us, we've got Henrik, a videographer, and Charlie. There's lots of different aspects to what you want to do, but if you want to get into the team, there's lots of avenues. One of the avenues that maybe might be helpful for you guys to consider is looking at our partner network, and companies like Dell, Deloitte, Unilever, BAT, Splunk, Darktrace. If you go on our website, you can have a look at our partner companies. There's over 30 companies that we're partnered with, and each of those will have specific project teams that work with McLaren, so it will give you experience with a Formula One team, but just through a third party. And some of these projects are pretty significant, very technical. So you could look at different roles within that, maybe not a sales role as such, but more either marketing or a lower technical role where you wouldn't need to have a degree in a particular field would be my advice.
Brilliant. So our next question, this is for Kenny. If you wanted to get into F1 without a university degree, how would you do that?
So it very much depends on the nature of what you want to do. Some people would go through an apprentice route. So that's very much leave school and then work their way up via a motorsport team, automotive companies, whoever it may be. Or as we had mentioned earlier, find yourself and jobs in suitable industries, build up your experience, build up your CV, maybe to extend like Katie said earlier, first build your CV to whatever you want to do and become an experienced hire ultimately. I've worked with engineers who didn't have a degree background. In fact, my first mentor, she was a graphic designer by education, without university degrees, etc., and became one of the best quality engineers I knew, and certainly in the industry. So there are lots of different ways of doing it. Bottom line is build up your CV, build up your experience and knowledge, and get into F1 that way. Like I said earlier, it is easier if you can specialize rather than generalize in something. In my case, it was very much in the realm of problem solving, design methodologies, processes, and continuous improvement. I know that may not mean a lot of things to a lot of our audience, but in the engineering world, they are various different disciplines that people would specialize in, and that's very much my route into F1 via my background in automotive engineering. Yes, granted, I must say that because my background is engineering, and the fact I have a degree may sound like what I'm saying may not be that relevant, but actually if I talk to all of my colleagues who don't come from a technical background or don't have a degree background, all of them would say the same thing of specialize in something, get really superbly good at it, and go in from there.
Brilliant. So our next question is for both Emil and Kenny. What can students do to improve their CV?
I think one of the most important things is to gain experience in a related field through internships or jobs. It doesn't really have to be a technical job, technical or non-technical. It holds for both, of course. Another thing I can recommend is don't be shy on your CV, just highlight your strengths. To give an example of myself, for me, it was also very difficult to get into F1, especially after being out of the technical industry for a while. But then you really have to show that you really want it, and also just demonstrate everything on your CV, all your strengths, so you catch their attention. And once that's the case and they invite you for an interview, that's a moment to prove yourself. So yeah, I think those are one of the most important things to get a job in F1. In any job, not only F1, but yeah.
So is the question really specific to be whilst at university or in general, Rachel?
I think in general. You can say
Okay.
whilst in university as well if you wanted to. I think that's more
In
for the second one.
university, I would defer you to our next webinar where our graduates and people who have gone through the graduate scheme can answer that better. But from a more generic practice, I suppose, get yourself involved in various different projects and things like that. Just get good at what you do, and first in F1, as well as the technical abilities, it's the attitude that counts a lot, because like I said at the start, we go through a lot of long, hard nights with complete lack of sleep, etc. So, and they are not things that you can switch on and switch off overnight. It takes years to build. It takes years to get used to it, and the attitude in terms of developing yourself to work with people, etc. In my role, I'd probably say 2/3 of what I do is to work with people. 1/3 of it is for my technical knowledge. So it's very much working on that sort of things, on developing yourself as a professional. I know that sounds really cliche. Again, that's not something that you can do overnight. It takes years of practice. And I know that to the day I retire, I will still carry on saying that I'm still developing myself as a professional. And that is something that you just have to keep going. And like I said, in your support group at LinkedIn, Rachel, the one single advice I was given was don't give up. It's really easy to just say, that's it, I've had enough. Just relating to some of our audience who are dialing in from the USA, which is like 4 or 5 in the morning, and Australia is nearly midnight, kudos to you. That is the exact kind of spirit and mindset to have to want to get into F1, because there are days where I have worked from like 1 in the afternoon to 6 a.m. non-stop, and you're just going, I'm not going to bed today and night. And you know what? You just have to suck it up and get on with it, because this is what motorsport, this is what top end of any industry is like. I can go back to the days when I worked for McLaren Automotive behind me. When I launched the McLaren P1, it's exactly the same experience. It is hard work, it's a lot of it, it doesn't stop. But you know what? It's worth it at the end. So just keep going, don't give up.
Yeah, Ken, I would have to agree there. Even though you guys are very pleased for us that we have a role in Formula One, it doesn't stop there. So even when I was furloughed, I was still studying courses online. There's so many free platforms that you can use. Coursera is the one that I used. It's got incredible courses from Stanford University, MIT. I was upskilling myself when I could have been relaxing whilst we were furloughed from work, but I studied a couple of courses there to make sure that I was relevant and valuable to the business. But also, as I was applying for my job, there was, I think, 170 applications for this particular role, and I called the reception desk every single day and emailed the hiring manager every single day. So perseverance is really key to that, and making sure people remember your name and know your name for the right reasons. So obviously LinkedIn as a platform is a professional networking social network. However, there's no reason why you couldn't for free, create an Instagram account, for example, and really demonstrate your passion and really demonstrate your interest and knowledge within a particular area.
Yeah, I agree, Katie. Also, with me, I try to make my CV really stand out, because a lot of people are applying, right? So I make my CV in the colors of McLaren, and I send it by mail rather than email, to really stand out. And actually, when they called me, they said, yeah, you were on top of the pile because you send it by mail. Just find a different way to apply as well, just not the straightforward way, I think. And another way, an important thing is to get in touch with people through, for example, LinkedIn, if you really want to work in F1, to get information. That's also what I did. So, yeah.
I find people, sorry to add to this, but I find people on LinkedIn are generally really helpful. So literally, if you have any questions, then like everyone's willing to help. Like, don't be shy. It'll make you stand out more if you're not shy, I think. So our next question, how can international students work in F1? We get a lot of this question. Emma?
I think this, I will divide this into pre-Brexit and post-Brexit. Pre-Brexit, if you're a EU citizen or a UK citizen, of course, you can get a job in F1 in the UK, or you need a valid work visa, so sponsorship. But I think the sponsorships are usually for more experienced people, so not like entry level. I'm from the Netherlands. I mean, I'm a Dutch citizen, so that's, for me, it was not really a problem to get a job in the UK. Right now, I have a pre-settled status, which means that I can work in the UK for 5 years after Brexit, because after Brexit, you need to be a UK citizen or you need this pre-settled status. So what I could recommend is try to find a job in the UK before Brexit happens to get this pre-settled status or a work visa. Yeah, otherwise you really need a work visa, I think, after Brexit as well. Yeah. Anything to add, Kenny?
Not really, because when I started my industry, I already had a UK passport, so I very much went on that route, just as anyone who grew up in Britain, really. The only thing I can add to that is work experience hire, like ML said. Get yourself settled status through working for other different companies, industries, and coming from there.
And then finally, from our kind of previously made questions, what technology or software would be useful to get familiar with before working in F1? I guess that.
Okay, I'll pick this one out, but before that, I'll have to give a couple of shout outs to Phil Sappier, who is our head of controls, and Will Joseph, Lando's race engineer, who has a very definitive answer on this. MATLAB, and MATLAB. If you go into engineering, that is the most commonly used and commonly available software that is taught in most scientific degrees, certainly in the UK and certainly in my own degree when I studied that. If you're talking about non-technical and marketing, I'll defer to Katie in a second. I'd also say Microsoft Office and VBA are probably the key ones, because like I said, almost anything else we use are bespoke. So as long as you show that you are quick on learning and are able to learn quickly, that's an important thing. Katie, over to you for the more marketing side.
Yeah, with marketing, obviously social media is such a big aspect of what we do. So the key platforms being Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. I would say also Adobe Photoshop is a key aspect of the design side of marketing. We also use Salesforce, which is probably something for those not in business at the moment won't be too familiar with. But essentially, it's a tracker of all the guests and prospective partners and existing partners that we kind of track as a customer relationship management platform, which is a CRM platform. We use that to track our engagement with existing partners, but then also prospects. So it's a key tool that lots and lots of businesses use. But if you're looking at going into sales or marketing, it's definitely Salesforce is a key platform for you to use.
Yeah, and I also see some questions about CAD and CFD. Yes, that's very useful in engineering. That's what I use every day for my job. So in uni, I used to work with CATIA version 5. I cannot tell much about what kind of software we use for CFD, unfortunately. But yeah, any kind of CFD tool, just you have to be able to demonstrate that you can work with it, you understand it. And also with CAD, you should show that you can design parts in CATIA. Just
on the CFD topic, there is a open source CFD software called OpenFOAM, which I've been learning over summer. I'd really recommend that. Yeah, that's useful. Right, that is all of the questions we had already. So now we are going to the questions that you guys have been asking for the past 20 minutes. So I'm very sorry if we don't get through all of the questions. We're going to try our hardest to answer as many as possible. So our first question, what would be advice that you would have given to your younger self?
Shall I go first on this one then? Apart from earlier, like I said, don't give up, and just keep trying. It's always be willing to learn and listen. Listen is probably the more important one, because in Formula One, what we are doing as well as our own innovation is a bit like the pink Mercedes of copying what other people have been good at doing. And you can't do that without being able to sit back objectively and soak in a lot of information. And I know all of us have been at one point to think that, you know, we are at the top of the tree, we know it all, etc. That is a very dangerous mindset to have in Formula One. I've certainly learned the hard way in my previous industry in automotive, and have beaten back down a number of occasions. So that's probably the single biggest thing I'll say to my younger self, of, you know, tune down on the arrogance and pretend you know everything, because you really don't. And in Formula One, you definitely find out you really don't know everything.
For me, that was, I think, I didn't do any internship or something in a Formula One company team. So that would be the advice to myself. Just try to get experience in a Formula One team or automotive, a related field. I did my internship in an aerospace abroad as well, in Turkey. But I think if you do an internship and also just keep working there as like part-time, for example, that really helps when you're applying for jobs in F1. I didn't do that, and that's, I think, why it was so difficult for me to get in, because I couldn't really demonstrate that I had experience in any of the fields.
For me, I would definitely say that there's a big difference between mentorship and sponsorship. Mentors are people that you can have with experience in what you want to do. They can be professional or personal. I have about 5 myself. It's just a bit extreme, but I have, you know, each of them have influence over what I do from a personal and professional perspective. And then sponsorship is really someone within your business that is investing time into your career and can help you climb the ladder. So that I would urge you guys to go away and have a look at pinpoint some people on LinkedIn, reach out to them and ask them if they might not be your mentor straight away. You might need to get to know each other first. So just ask them about their career. If you want to chat with them, they'll be probably quite happy to have a chat with you. And then that can naturally form a mentorship relationship if it's something that they'd be happy to do. But I wouldn't ask straight away to be someone's mentor. We can say we get asked a lot to be people's mentors, and it's sometimes not the most natural relationship for you to have. And if you are reaching out to someone to get to know them, I would set an agenda of what you want to talk about, so be very specific. As you guys are, we're very, very busy with our day jobs and we're very happy to help, but we need to be specific and prepared about what you want to talk about. So I'd say get some mentors, be specific with what you want to talk to your mentors about. And then when you're in a business setting, for those that are already in a business setting, look at sponsorship and see who above you do you aspire to be like, can you learn from, attach yourselves to those people and they will help you on your career.
Yeah, the mentor tip is very good. I also did that. I won't mention names, but that person really helped me a lot. Also during my interviews, the technical aspects, it was really useful. So that's a very good tip of Katie.
Yeah, I would recommend that as well. I also have a mentor, and she's been my mentor for 5 or 6 years now, and I go to the British Grand Prix. I see her kind of every year, so it's really nice. It's really nice to have someone who you can ask questions to whenever. Okay, our next question. What degree should you do if you want to work in engineering in F1?
Any, I suppose, that's related to Formula One. So it can be from software applications, computer science, to my own degree, mechanical engineering. My university also happened to do automotive and motorsport, so you can have bias that way as well. Bottom line is understand what type of engineer you want to be. So for example, both Emel and I are engineers, but we study very different disciplines. Mine's with mechanical and automotive tendency, and Mel's is probably more with maths and aero.
Yeah,
or speculate. So
aerospace engineering and aerodynamics as specialization. Yeah.
yeah, so they're very different disciplines, and ultimately we still work in Formula One. So find one that you're probably more attuned and happy with, and go from there.
Yeah, so the most common engineering degrees I know are mechanical engineering, aerospace engineering, and also there's a colleague who studied bioengineering and then now does data science. So I think it's really important that you can demonstrate that you can apply the knowledge you learned at uni to the problems or complexities of Formula One, and just that you can really demonstrate what you're capable of.
I would say as well, just for the future of the sport and future of other industries, something that we're seeing from our partners is machine learning and data science. It's a real skills shortage, I know, especially from within the UK. So for those that are studying their A-levels or looking at what to study at university, data science is definitely something that you would be very wise to consider.
And also shout out to the future. So a lot of material science that side as well, and as Katie alluded to, computer science and cybersecurity, that side of things.
We also had a question asking, what about non-technical roles? So Katie, for example, marketing, what kind of degree would you take? Yeah,
within marketing, there's events and hospitality specific degrees you can study. There's also business management, which is what I did. I studied that because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So you guys are very lucky that you know exactly what you want to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So you're already one step ahead of the game there. Business management covers everything. So it covers legal aspects of business, finance, PR and communications, HR, and strategy. So I use a lot of those skills across my role at the moment. You can also study PR and communications, but to be completely honest with you, in non-technical roles, a degree isn't necessarily a very big part of the recruitment process and what we look for in applications. We've employed people within our team that don't have a degree, but they really had some great experience working with production companies that work with Top Gear, for example. There's lots of areas and ways in which you can come into the business without necessarily a degree, but they are there. If you look at the three of us, this isn't our first job, so you've got to have experience as well as maybe not a degree, but experience is, in my opinion, a lot more valuable than a degree for a non-technical role.
Mm-hmm. Another question linked to that was, is there a difference between what you'd study if you wanted to work trackside compared to what you'd study if you wanted to work in a factory?
For me, go ahead.
Go on, you first.
For me, not really. I mean, the difference between in aero, trackside engineers and factory-based engineers is that factory-based engineers do more the design of the parts, and trackside aero engineers do more the performance, so data analysis. How do our designs perform during the races? And then we, of course, do tests before we actually race them. So there's not really a difference in engineering degree you need. It's just more to go trackside, you need some experience, of course, factory-based first, and then you go trackside. But engineering-wise or study-wise, no, there's no difference.
So feedback from my colleagues who have been trackside or work trackside say that basically my equivalent in trackside are what I do, but with a lot better time management and stress management skills. Because trackside is chaotic, very much time defined, and you've got 2 car crews coming at you at any one time. So yeah, it's very much the soft skill side of things that's important rather than prioritizing the differences in our academic knowledge.
Mm-hmm. The next question, how much work experience did you have before you joined McLaren? And do you need experience before joining McLaren or any F1 team, or can you go straight from university?
I mean, if you do a graduate scheme, if you apply for a graduate scheme, you don't need experience because that's right out of uni. I had 2 years of work experience in a bank before I joined McLaren. So it really depends on what you apply for, I think. For experience roles, experience is useful. As I said, I only had 2 years of work experience in banking. So yeah, any other tips?
Katie?
Katie?
I had 3 years work experience before joining McLaren, and that was a range of internships at PR agencies and events agencies, working with brands. If you're looking at marketing specifically or any sponsorship roles, I've seen a couple of you asking how to get into marketing, really look at the brands that are taking part within Formula One and then sponsorship more widely. So American Express, Visa from a financial services point of view, you've got Heineken, Rolex, the Formula One partners, DHL. You know, these brands have huge sponsorship budgets, and they spend them in Formula One. So there's also agencies that are employed to manage those partnerships on behalf of the brands, and you can join at very junior level within an agency and work your way up to be a manager, and that's where most people make the move into Formula One or to what they call rights holder side. So a lot of my team have come from agencies and they've moved over into the team, or you can move to Formula One itself, or you can move to other sports entities, but you can work for agencies on behalf of brands managing sponsorship.
From my side, I spent 8 years as an automotive quality engineer, working for sister company McLaren Automotive and McLaren Applied Technologies. I also worked for Jaguar Land Rover for 3 and a bit years. So like I said, my hire was very much geared towards what I had specialised in and for experience rather than my degree, because no one will hire me into Formula with my degree.
Right, next question. How important is a master's degree to work in F1?
I don't have one.
It really depends on what you apply for, I think. I do have it, but not everyone in my team has a master's degree. Some of them have a bachelor's degree, some of them have PhD degrees. So yeah, it's not needed, but it does help a lot, I think.
Rachel, I'm seeing a lot of questions around degree specific. So some of you have been studying lots of different degrees and how that can be applied into Formula One. This goes into a conversation around transferable skills and what can you bring into the team? What have you learned from your degree that would be valuable to a role within a Formula One team? So if you can think about communication, all the soft skills that you've learned, maybe you've built strategies, maybe you've done some analytics. Think about the soft and hard skills that you've learned and how you can apply those into Formula One from your degree. I'm seeing a lot of questions that are degree specific, so it's really hard to answer all of them, guys. But if you've been studying a degree or you're looking at studying a degree, think about the transferable skills that you can bring to a team and add value to the business.
I think especially if you're studying an engineering degree, you can get into a lot of kind of the engineering roles in F1. So yeah, like Katie said, look at all the skills that you've learned and try and put them on your CV and apply them. Okay, so next question. This is for Amal and Katie. What is it like to work in a male-dominated industry?
Katie, do you want to go first?
I'm happy to go first. You can go first.
Yeah, go ahead, go first, and then I'll go.
It's fun. There's challenges, of course. I really enjoy it, and you'd be surprised about the amount of women that actually are working in Formula One, and how close you become to the women that you work with, because you are the minority. For me, to be completely honest with you, sometimes I am the only woman in the room, but it gives you a full advantage because everyone knows who you are and everyone knows your name and everyone remembers you. So it's only a good thing for me, to be honest.
Yeah, people that definitely remember you because you're one of, not so many women. But I mean, I'm used to it from my studies. Aerospace engineering in Delft also doesn't have a lot of women. So for me, it was not really different. I enjoy it. And as Katie said, people remember you. Yeah, but there's no real disadvantage or something. I didn't notice that. I didn't experience any.
Yeah, if you see yourself as any different, then you put yourself as at a disadvantage. You're in a professional setting, so you know, obviously there are aspects that are different socially, but in a professional setting, you're exactly the same.
Yeah, if I can chip in, not from a male-female perspective, but from an ethnic minority perspective, because people are bound to think that, right, with F1 being such a European/American dominated sport, what about people who are not from Europe and Americas? So if I can come in from that side, to be fair, in my years of experience working in automotive motorsport, people don't notice. You're very much hired into the industry and so in the sport on what you know and how good you're at your job, and not based on your skin color, etc. So put your skills first and concentrate on that.
Brilliant. Next, we have a question for Katie. So what is it like to work day to day in marketing?
Busy. Every day is different. This year has been a big challenge for not just the race team, but the marketing team in terms of the race calendar being a triple header. We're also working race weekends. It's been different. I'm normally traveling to the races. This year I haven't gone to any races. It's my first year in 3 years that I haven't been living out of a suitcase, but a lot of our work has gone digital, and a lot of our meetings are over Zoom now, so we've had to learn different skills and adapt and maintain relationships with clients, especially from a partner perspective, but we've also had to deliver what we haven't been able to deliver trackside. So normally partners would have big guest programs, for example, where they'd be inviting their clients trackside and we would be there to host them. But this year, unfortunately, they weren't allowed to bring any guests. So we've had to really adapt and change, which is why I was studying when I was furloughed and learning new skills, because some of these skills have been invaluable to the way that we've had to adapt and change. But no day is the same. Sometimes I am trackside interviewing the drivers, or getting the drivers to meet my friends and spending time trackside, and sometimes I'm at my desk looking at a spreadsheet and a budget. So it's a very, very, very varied role, but it's very, very enjoyable.
Brilliant. What kind of, so, sorry, next question, right. What are the top 3 qualities that F1 employers look for? If you could pick any.
So being good at your job or being good at what you do is almost a given. I have to say, as I said earlier, we are all hired because of our technical skills, and almost we specialize in something regardless of what roles we do. Second bit would be your attitude, particularly if you are coming in as a relatively inexperienced member of the team, because it's all about how well you work with people. I can certainly relate to Katie's experiences of the days very different. For us, it can be finishing on the podium and next race our car crashes, and you have to deal with that. And certainly when, like myself and the 40 guys who work here in mission control, you have to switch very quickly to our cars are doing really well, all of a sudden it's hit a wall, it's not finished, etc. And you just have to change your focus very quickly to go, we've still got another car running in the points, focus on that. So it's that sort of mental attitude and the capability of being able to compartmentalize things and keep emotion out. I know, again, it sounds like, oh, it's an engineering, you know, you guys can just know, it's something that takes years of deliberate working and skills and practice to get there. And I will tell you about a third when I can think of it, because yeah, it's skills and attitude for me. That's important too.
I think being proactive, because it's a fast-paced environment, you need to take things on, make it happen. Being flexible, because not everything goes to plan, and when things don't go to plan, you need to work around it. So some sort of creativity comes into play there, I think. And also being motivated, being able to motivate yourself when you, for example, don't win a race, but also others in your team.
Yep. So the next question we have, how do you manage your time in such a busy and demanding job?
Some will argue badly. No, it's very much so. In Formula One, I mean, you guys who watch Formula One knows that bottom line is we have to get the cars out onto the track. That is not negotiable. Whatever we do, it has to be get the car out of there. Obviously, we cannot compromise driver and our crew safety. Okay, so they are our two absolute bottom minimum. So my work as a reliability engineer and the whole team, regardless of what we do, is to make sure that the car is safe and we cross the finish line. And then after that, it is then depending on our jobs. So for instance, mine would be less, for instance, say caring about adding weights to the car, but I would need to make sure the car's finished. And then ML would probably be different on making sure that the car is as aerodynamic, as light as possible. So, and that is the joy about working in F1, is that it is a sport, it's an industry of compromise. And so actually that is then coming back to your earlier question about third skill, it's about communications. And so what we have to do, and now coming back to your last question on how do you prioritize, is you understand, right, based on what people are telling you and the information you have, based on what the information you've got, what is then important, and things like, and you work your way through that. One thing I add on now is, most people think that engineering is a 9-to-5 job. It isn't. The amounts of times we've done 16, 18 hours, and that is just on a regular day. It is part of what we've signed up to do in Formula One. And you know what, getting the podiums, getting the points is worth it. It is a bit harder when you're not in the points, but ultimately, big picture is we've got a championship to fight for. And if that doesn't motivate you, I will be cynical and say maybe Formula One isn't for you.
Yeah, if you're looking for a Monday to Friday 9-to-5 job, you will not find one in Formula One. It's weekends, it's long hours, it's evenings, but it's also exciting and exhilarating when you know that every single person has a contribution to make to winning, or at least getting a podium, which is where we are at the moment.
Someone asked as well, how do you balance kind of your family time alongside your work time?
Or
do you not?
I think any of us three have families, children, so it would be quite hard for us to answer. I'd be the first to put up my hand up and say I'm a workaholic, so most people will probably argue I have a complete lack of balance, so not the best place to answer, I'm afraid.
I try to balance it. I mean, it's not easy because sometimes you make appointments and you need to cancel it because of work. But I try to do as much as possible during the weekends if I have time. My family lives in the Netherlands, so I try to travel there as much as possible. But also for my job, I need to travel a lot to Germany almost every month. Sometimes I need to stay longer than 1 week. So it can be tough, but manageable, let's say.
Brilliant. Penny, how do you bounce back from a weekend when either Lando or Carlos doesn't finish a race due to a reliability issue?
Bounce back is probably something that we look at a few days down the line. But granted, yeah, there are sometimes there's only 3 days in between us packing up the last race and then building a car and getting ready. To answer the question, so in terms when we get a problem coming in, say a non-finish, we've got a lot of data information and also a lot of videos and replays to understand why that's the case already. So even before the race starts, in the case of Carlos in Belgium, for instance, we've already known what had happened and what we need to do about it. It's just then for the rest of the race, we focus on Lando's car. Doesn't mean that we forget about it. Doesn't mean that it doesn't get to us, but the point is in that instance, for example, we knew that Italy was coming in a few days' time. So it was very much get the race done, work out what we need to do. Do we need a new engine? Do we need new parts? Do we need to change our software parameters and strategy? I mean, the deployment strategy with the software, not race strategy, by the way. So there are a lot of things that we can focus on making sure, like I said earlier, make sure the car gets out to a race across the finish line. Everything else we will then manage separately. There are various methodologies, tools, and ways that we can do that. But bottom line is making sure that whatever we then send out to the track are good to last the race, and we will come back and manage on an ongoing basis as part of the joy of working in a prototype race series, really.
Brilliant. Next question. We're getting a lot of questions about kind of Formula Student and F1 in schools and those kind of competitions and whether those are important for your CV.
Definitely. I mean, it's experience, as I mentioned earlier. So if you have experience in a Formula Student team, that really helps. That demonstrates that you can work in a team, first of all, and second of all, in a Formula One team. So high pressure environment. So that really helps, yes.
I'll shout out to our webinar on the 20th, where most of our panelists were in a Formula Student team. They're probably a better place to answer that. I wasn't in Formula Student. In fact, I had, apart from my degree, very little to do with Formula One because that wasn't what I was interested in. I wanted to be an automotive engineer. So I didn't do any of that. So long way around to say, it's not the end of the world. The most important thing from a recruitment point of view is to show that you are willing to go beyond the basics of just getting a degree. You're willing to get experience, to prove yourself, to be continuously learning, challenging yourself. Again, I keep going back to it's your attitude. And that is very important for a young recruit because you don't have the experience. It's all about how you get on with people and how you get on with delivering what you need to deliver. And are you able to be pushing yourself 24/7? They are the important things. So taking example of going back to the reliability question we had just now, on the Belgian weekend, I was probably doing 14, 16 hours during the race weekend. So that is on top of my day job of being in office Monday to Friday, etc., to work through these issues. And so there's a number of the mission control guys, as well as the engineers supporting from home, etc. So these are the challenges that we constantly face. And yeah, you can't plan around it. And so it's all about how you deal with it. Again, that goes back to attitude.
I would agree when you're applying for any role, and then especially within Formula One in schools is an incredible platform, and it does set people differently. It does set you out differently. So if you can imagine we're sent hundreds of CVs per role, how do you make sure that you stand out? Formula One in schools is an amazing platform. I was fortunate enough to be at the World Finals in Abu Dhabi last year, and the excitement and passion from each and every single student was it really did blow me away. The diversity that was there, different age groups, different ethnicities, different genders, it was really incredible. And they've put in a lot of hours into their projects. They fundraised themselves, they designed the cars themselves. They were so passionate about what they were doing that even if you don't win or you don't go into the finals, for example, your network that you build will be very valuable to you. So you can make friends and you can have those professional leads to help you in the future. If one of your friends goes off and gets a job at a Formula One team, they can help you get your job in a Formula One team as well. So do not underestimate the extracurricular activity, and you're asking around soft skills as well. If you're graduating university, you may be in a pool of people with exactly the same degree. How do you differentiate yourself from everyone else with the same degree as you? It's extracurricular activity, and that will support your soft skills, because people will see that you can work in a team, that you can communicate, and they're really valuable skills for especially a Formula One team.
Brilliant. I think we have time for one or maybe two more questions. So we will go for, what would you recommend study or kind of do work experience in, or gain skills for someone who isn't sure what role they want to work in F1?
To be honest, any experience is experience. It doesn't matter where you're getting from, what sports category, etc. So if you go out there and say volunteer as a marshal if there is a professional racetrack near you, or if you want to become a mechanical engineer, you go and volunteer at the go-kart, your local garage, wherever it may be. It is the experience that counts, because ultimately you're learning, and that's the important thing.
Emma, Katie, anything else?
Not really, actually.
I would say spend some time and invest in yourself and figure out what it is that you want to do, because it will give you some focus and determination. If that changes along the way, that's absolutely fine. But if you have something in mind, that real, you know, like I said, reverse engineering or reverse writing your CV, however you want to put it, it will give you some focus and give you something to work towards. And it's totally okay if that changes along the way.
And I think the graduate program, you don't really know what kind of full-time position you want, is a good way to learn what you like, because you rotate then. And I see that a lot of people ask questions about the graduate program, actually. But then you rotate in different departments to see what you like. So I think that's a good way to figure out in what department you want to work.
I just thought I'd mention as well, we're going to talk more about, we're not purposely ignoring the graduate scheme questions. We're going to talk about that more in the second webinar for students who are already in university. Right, I think we have time for one more question. Yeah.
Sure.
So what kind of, are there any student kind of programs run by McLaren or F1 that are based online that can give students a chance to learn more?
So there isn't any that McLaren runs specifically, but we have referenced Formula One in schools, and that really is an integral part of an academy, I guess, almost. But Formula One is aware that they can be doing more to encourage you guys into the sport and offering more to you. So I would say watch this space. There'll be a lot more coming your way, I'm sure. But stay updated on social media platforms, check websites frequently, sign up to mailing lists. But I would focus on Formula One in schools as much as possible, if you're in the right age bracket, of course.
We also have McLaren Substitute Teacher, where different people from different departments explain what they work on and what they do on a daily basis. So I think that's a good way to figure out what you would like or what we exactly do in our daily jobs.
Or I think, without sounding too stalkerish about it, have a look at what people who work in Formula One do already. So also linking back quickly to mentoring questions. So some of the professionals, for instance, take Mel, myself, Katie, for instance, we are all also have STEM ambassador in our LinkedIn profile. And what that means is part of our role is to promote those subjects, and part of that does rather mean talking and mentoring people. So they would be guys who are more likely to be willing to have a conversation with you, to offer to mentor, coach you, whatever it may be. So if there is a target role or subject field, whatever you want to go into, look for people with that type of profile and see what you can extract from their profile, what skills they have, what they've done, etc., and use that as a sample, not necessarily a benchmark.
Yeah, and look at roles in our partner companies as well. So we have Darktrace, a cybersecurity company. We've got Dell Technologies. We've got incredible partners. So I would encourage you to look at their businesses and the roles available within their companies as well.
And also, for example, some people sometimes ask me to give a talk about what I do. I'm going to do that twice this month. So you can also ask people to give a talk at your school, your uni, or something like that. I'm going to do it at 2 schools this month in the Netherlands. So that's the way I can, if you want, I think it's going to be recorded, so I can send it to you. If you contact me on LinkedIn, for example, I can send you the link. So
expect a lot of requests coming your way.
yeah.
Brilliant. Right. I think that's all we have time for. It's been great to talk to you guys, and thank you so much for everyone who has sent in questions. We hope we've covered a good range of topics. If you have any more questions, then feel free to, I don't want to kind of have you guys get loads of questions on LinkedIn, but feel free to send through questions.
Yeah, sure.
If you have any.
Yeah, I think send it through via your former student, former careers, even support group. That's probably the best way of doing it, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, thank you to Rachel, and thank you for everyone who has tuned in for the last hour listening to us rambling on.
Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Rachel, for putting together as well.
Yeah, thanks everyone. And watch the race in Turkey. I see that there's a lot of people from Turkey now. So hopefully we will do well.
And good luck with your careers.
Last note, I'm getting a lot of questions about the webinar will be put on the Formula Careers website after. Yep. Cool. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Good luck.
Thank you. Take
Good
care.
luck. Thank you. Bye-bye.